Gavin Gu here from Ultimate Reloader for Mark 7 Reloading. In this video, I'm going to walk through first time setup for the Mark 7 Apex 10 reloading press, step by step. What we've got here is a Mark 7 Apex 10 reloading press, fully featured with some extras, ready to load 45 ACP. Regardless of which caliber you're going to load, this video will help you with the process. I'm going to take this machine completely apart and walk through each of the component area setup processes step by step and cover all the tools you're going to need as well. Let me get this press taken apart and we'll get started. So here it is. I've taken my Apex 10 from ready to load configuration back to the collection of parts and equipment that you're going to get. This is exactly what you're going to see when you get your Apex 10 out of all of the boxes, out of all of the plastic bags, and this is laid out by component area. We've got the core press assembly, a completed cartridge bin, the feet that go between the press itself and your mount or your bench. We've got the spent primer tube. We've got the Allen key for the hold down bolt. Through the bench mounting hardware, the press handle, which has a roller feature, plus the mounting block and key. We've got extra case retention springs. We've got the hold down die for the swaging station. Everything you're gonna need for primers, for both large diameter primers and small diameter primers, including pickup tubes. We've got the powder measure, and then we've got the new case feed system, the mounting pole and related mounting hardware. We've got drop tubes for large and small case diameters, the case adapter. We've got the power cord and the upper shield, which helps when we're running a lot of cases in the case feed bowl so that cases don't spill out of the top. So this is what you're gonna see when you get everything out of the box. We're gonna go area by area, step by step, and cover the assembly process, starting with the core press assembly, getting it mounted, and getting the handle installed. In this first sequence, we're gonna tackle installing the feet on the press, getting the press mounted to the bench, installing the handle, and slipping on the spent primer drop tube. The tools you'll need for this sequence include an 1/8, 3/16, and 5/16 set of Allen keys, diagonal pliers to cut our zip tie, and if you're going through the bench, you're gonna need a 9/16 inch combination wrench and a 3/8 inch or larger drill bit. We'll start by screwing on the feet. This is a simple matter of getting the press kind of in the middle of your bench and then rocking the press one way or the other to give you access to the bottom of the press, and these are going to screw in under each hole. If you wish to use the included hardware for a through the bench mounting type of setup, you're just going to set the press on your bench, get it just how you want it, make sure you have enough clearance for the handle to go down, mark your holes, drill them, and then use the included bolts, split washers, and nylock nuts. I have a custom mounting plate for this special bench system here, so I'm going to use my own bolts, and we'll just go ahead and send those through and then tighten them down one by one. With our press mounted solidly to the bench, it's now time to get the handle installed. There's a mounting block and a woodruff key that need to go in first. The woodruff key is a bit of a tight fit. You just want that to snap right in. And then we're gonna take our 1/8 inch Allen key, we're gonna slide this block over and then tighten the 2 set screws that clamp down against that woodruff key. Now, because the tool head is zip tied in essentially the down position here, that means the press handle is also going to be down. That makes accessing these Allen keys especially easy. Now's a good time to make sure that you've got adequate clearance when you're all the way down. I'm going to center this up. There's a little bit of a throw adjustment. If you shorten or lengthen the effective length of the press handle, I'm going to take the 3/16 inch Allen key and then kind of get that a little bit tight and then kind of rock the handle while I tighten that all the way around. We can now take our diagonal pliers, cut our zip tie. This can be a little tricky to snake out. A couple cuts is not a bad idea there. And then carefully raise the press handle to the top position and verify that nothing is bound up. Everything's super smooth here. That means the last thing we need to do is slip on the spent primer tube. Right under number station 2, there's a boss sticking down. We just push it right on. Next, we're going to install the support pole for the case feed system. The parts that are going to be utilized here are the pole brackets. There's 2 of those. They're the same. They also have 2 Allen screws each with 2 washers each. There's the coupler block. The coupler block has 8 Allen screws with 8 split washers. And then we've got the pole mounting bolts and spacers. For tools, we're going to need a 3/16 Allen key and a 7/32 inch Allen key. A quick note about tools, you'll notice I have T-handle Allen keys on hand, I have ball and screwdriver type Allen keys on hand, and I also use the traditional L type depending on the kind of clearance and the kind of operation you're performing. It's nice to have all 3. We're going to start by getting these brackets mounted to the frame, and we're using our 3/16 inch Allen key for this here, and you can see I'm not going to be able to spin my key there. So I'm going to grab my ball end, and that's going to help things go more smoothly. These pole brackets are the same, so that you don't have to worry about which is which. Okay, with the pole brackets mounted, we can now install the lower pole section. We're going to have 2 bolts and 2 spacers. The larger spacer goes on the top. The spacer is going to go between the pole and the frame. And we'll use the smaller spacer on the bottom. For this, we're going to use our 7/32 Allen key. Back to our 3/16 Allen key, we're now going to insert the coupler block in. We're going to have the tapped holes facing the holes here on the sides, and insert the Allen screws here, all 8 of them, once we get both pole sections installed to hold everything together. Halfway through, we slip on the upper pole section and finish inserting and tightening the last 4 Allen screws. Pole is mounted. It's now time to configure the case feed bowl and to get it hung on the press. What we're going to need here is the case feed bowl itself, the case feed plate, which is caliber specific. We've got the upper shield, we've got 3 mounting bolts with washers, and we've got the power cord. The only tool we're going to need for this phase in the process is our 7/32 inch Allen key. A quick note about the case feed plate. There's 2 metal discs on either side of the Lexan feed plate, and there's 2 screws here. Tightening these screws tightens what is essentially a clutch. This is supposed to slip if things get bound up. It's an important safety mechanism. But if you ever find that your case feeder isn't turning under load, you can tighten these a little bit to get it to turn. Just make sure that it will indeed slip when it needs to. Okay, so with that said, we can drop the case feed plate in. rotate it until it kind of snaps into position. And then the upper shield, this is optional. I've run the case feed system without it, but that's gonna help hold cases in if we're running at a high capacity. That's just gonna kind of pop right into these 3 cutouts in the back of the feed bowl. Now we can hang the feed bowl. On the case feed bowl, we've got a bracket that has holes on one side and welded nuts on the other side. A very nice feature. And then there's 3 corresponding holes in the pole. So I'm just going to take one of these bolts, hold things up so I can kind of see daylight through. Get that going. Helps to wiggle things as usual. Get the second bolt going. And the third. Get things tightened down with our 7/32 Allen key. 1, 2, 3. Bowl is mounted. Now let's take care of the power cord. Right into the socket on the front side here. The press does come with zip tie mounting blocks here that you can use to anchor the cords. I'm gonna wait to do that until I have my bullet feeder installed. To finish up the case feed system install, we just need to install 2 more parts. We've got the large drop tube, we've got the case feed adapter. Tools we're gonna need for this phase of the process are gonna include a 7/64 and an 1/8 inch Allen key. So we're gonna take the case feed adapter, remove the rear screw, the one closest to you, put that through the case feed adapter. This acts as the pivot. Swing it into place. We're gonna use the smaller, the 7/64 for the front screw. Tighten that down and then use the 1/8 on the rear screw to get that tightened down. Now we take the drop tube assembly. This has got a rotate and lock design, which is really nice. That locks it into the top, and then we're just gonna press the Lexan tube with the O-ring into the case feed adapter. Case feed system is done. Let's get the powder measure assembled and installed on the Apex 10. Here's what we've got. Case activated powder die. We've got the hopper. We've got the main assembly for the powder measure. We're also going to use a piece of 45 ACP brass to set the height of the powder die. Tools we need for this phase of the process include a 5/64 inch Allen key and a 1 inch combination wrench for the die lock ring. The first thing we need to do is to take the hopper and to insert it into the main body of the powder measure. We're just going to carefully align that and push it until it bottoms out. We're going to take the powder die and start it threading into station number 6. The station numbering starts at case insertion. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Screw a few threads in. Then we're going to slide the powder measure body over. We're going to use our 5/64 inch Allen key to tighten that in place. Now we take our 45 ACP brass, put that right under the powder measure in station number 6. And what we want to do is basically screw this in, and we're going to stop when it hits the top, minus a little bit. We don't want it to completely bottom out. You can see that raising. Okay, so that's bottoming out right there. Looks like we don't have excess pressure on that. We're going to take our 1 inch open end side of the wrench there, tighten our lock ring. That's our initial dial in and installation of the powder measure. The Mark 7 Apex 10 comes with a hold down die for the swaging station. The only tool we're going to need to install this die is a 1 inch combination wrench for the lock ring. This Lyman hold down die comes with internal rods for pistol and rifle. You can tell the rifle one because it's got a tapered nose and the pistol rod because it's got a blunt nose. We're going to drop that rod assembly in, screw down the cap. We can now install this die on the press. On the Apex 10, swaging happens in station number 3. So we're going to start the hold down die in station number 3, and then we're going to insert a piece of brass in the shell plate in station number 3. Setup here is going to be really straightforward. We're just going to crank this down. What's going to happen is the rod is going to contact the web of the case head. Okay, I can feel that right there, right there. Okay, I'm gonna back off things just a little bit, increase by a quarter turn, and then we're gonna go ahead and tighten the lock ring. It's that easy. Next, we're gonna assemble and install the remaining priming system components on the press. Here's what we've got: the weighted rod, the cap, the drop tube, the shield and base, the base mounting screws, and the buzzer assembly. Tools we're going to need for these installation steps include a 5/64 inch Allen key and a 3/32 inch Allen key. We're going to start by selecting the correct drop tube. I'm loading 45 ACP, traditional primed brass, so I've got the large drop tube here. There's a very small neck down. We're going to insert that into the shield and feel it contact the base and drop in to the recess there. We're going to screw on the cap, slip the buzzer assembly over the top, and then we're going to take our 5/64 Allen key and give that a little snug. We can loosen this and rotate it if it's not oriented correctly. Now we can take the entire assembly, drop it into place. We've got 2 screws here, and we've got the drop tube right over the primer shuttle wheel. Insert our 2 screws and screw them in with the 3/32 Allen key. Give those a little snug, and then rotate our buzzer assembly, give it a little test. Good to go. I finished installing the rest of the dies, minus powder check die, minus bullet feed die, so that we can check basic operation of the press. These dies are installed and adjusted just like any other progressive reloading press, so it's therefore outside the scope of this video. But I did want to go through the station utilization. In station number 1, we've got case insertion. Station number 2 is sizing and depriming. Station number 3 is the hold down die, and we've got the swaging station under that. Station number 4 is priming, and I've got an oversized sizing die over the top of that. Case expansion in station number 5, powder charge in station number 6. Station number 7 is reserved for our powder check. Station number 8 is reserved for our bullet drop die. Station number 9 is bullet seating, and station number 10 is bullet crimping. In preparation for firing up the press, I've also added components. I've added primers, powder, and cases. That means I'm ready to run a couple cases through the press to validate my die setups. So I ran a couple cases manually through the press by dropping individual cases into the drop funnel, running it through the stations, validating each of the setups. I made a tweak, which happened to be the expander die in this particular case, validated my powder charge. Everything is adjusted just the way that I want it, and that means we can now turn on the case feeder and run up the press. So now that the press is run up, we're going to load some more cartridges to assure ourselves we're completely satisfied with how the press is running before we add the powder check and before we add the bullet feeder. So each time we pull the handle, we're going to do a powder check in station number 9 and set a bullet in station number 9, and then just keep an eye on everything to make sure everything's running smoothly. Now the Apex 10 looks complete. I just got done installing the optional but highly recommended combination of a powder check die and a bullet feed system. This bullet feed system is the Mr. Bullet Feeder, and I will note that with the updated case feed system that comes with the Apex 10, there's an integrated mount for the Mr. Bullet Feeder bullet collator bowl, so that cleans things up a bit. That means we're now ready to load in style. I hope this video was helpful for you in the process of getting your Mark 7 Apex 10 set up. If you liked this video, you're going to want to check out the rest of the videos over at the Mark 7 Reloading Knowledge Base.